The South China Sea is the most contested waterway on Earth. Trillions of dollars in trade flow through these shipping lanes, and right now, the balance of power over who controls them is rapidly tipping in one direction. Over the last decade, Beijing has built an overwhelming maritime advantage. They are projecting dominance across the region by deploying massive, multi-billion-dollar aircraft carrier strike groups far beyond their own coastline. Beijing relies on gray zone warfare to assert control without triggering an open conflict. They use heavily armed Coast Guard vessels and maritime militias to bully neighboring fleets, firing water cannons and ramming smaller boats to enforce territorial claims. For nations sharing these waters, like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia, the situation is precarious. They lack the defense budgets to build rival fleets and cannot match the sheer tonnage of the Chinese Navy boat for boat. To survive, these smaller navies require asymmetric deterrence. They need a weapon system that is relatively cheap to acquire, but lethal enough to hold massive Chinese warships at constant risk. Into this power vacuum steps an unexpected supplier. India has historically been cautious about aggravating Beijing, but New Delhi is now actively arming China's regional rivals. New Delhi is redrawing the strategic map of the Pacific by supplying a single, specialized missile system to Southeast Asian partners. This is the tip of India's new defense diplomacy, the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile. Developed through an Indo-Russian joint venture, it has become the centerpiece of New Delhi's export strategy in the region. The missile uses a ramjet engine to sustain speeds of Mach 2.8. To comply with international arms control restrictions, these export variants are strictly limited to a range of 290 kilometers.
Its dart-like profile is optimized for strong hull penetration, while a specialized radar-absorbent coating helps the missile evade detection. It operates on a fire-and-forget guidance system, tracking its target independently after launch. This system has already seen live combat during India's Operation Sindoor. In that conflict, the BrahMos was used to strike targets with high precision, validating its performance under active wartime conditions. Neutralizing a modern carrier group requires overcoming layers of advanced radar and interceptor missiles. However, technical simulations suggest that a coordinated volley of 24 to 36 BrahMos missiles can saturate these defenses, placing even the most expensive naval assets at extreme risk. On a map, these technical specs translate to physical territorial control. In 2024, the Philippines took delivery of their first missile batteries as part of a $375 million deal. This 290-kilometer threat radius now engulfs critical flashpoints like the Scarborough Shoal. Vietnam is following suit with a $700 million negotiation for 5 batteries. These deployments will lock down the western corridor of the sea, creating overlapping zones of fire with Philippine defenses. Indonesia is the latest partner to join this network, seeking a $450 million contract. President Prabowo Subianto intends to replace older Russian hardware with Indian technology to secure Indonesia's maritime borders. These individual contracts create a unified defensive architecture, allowing Southeast Asian nations to maintain overlapping radar bubbles and anti-ship perimeters along their shared maritime borders. By placing this specific weapon at these geographic choke points, India is helping its neighbors build a physical deterrent against naval incursions. Beijing has responded to these deployments with open anxiety. Chinese military experts have labeled the BrahMos a troublemaker for international security, and the Chinese Coast Guard has intensified its intimidation tactics against Philippine vessels in response to the acquisition. China is now deploying maritime espionage assets to closely monitor India's weapons development and testing cycles. India recently delayed a missile test when the Chinese survey vessel Xi'an 6 was spotted lurking in the Bay of Bengal. Intelligence sources believe the ship was positioned specifically to track Indian missile trajectories and impact data. These missile exports establish a permanent framework for military-to-military cooperation, including specialized training ecosystems and resilient regional supply chains. India has transitioned from a passive arms importer into an assertive geopolitical architect, actively reshaping the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific.